Hey everybody, how's everybody doing? It is Thursday, and just want to let you know that earlier today I sent out an email with the full analysis and breakdown of the weekly EIA Petroleum Status Report. It was a very interesting report with some conflicting elements in there, but if you would like to get a copy of that, and all MMT Trader subscribers, I sent out a copy to. If you are not an MMT Trader subscriber, and if you want a copy of that email, just go to my website, pitbulleconomics.com, and sign up for a 30-day free trial of MMT Trader, and I will send you that email. I break it down as no one else does. You know, the zombies, they wait around until that report is released every Wednesday. Today was Thursday because of the Columbus Day holiday. And they just look at one number off of that report. That report is a huge report that has an enormous amount of information on it. But they just wait and look at the inventories. If the inventories are up, they sell. If the inventories are down, they buy. That is so unsophisticated. And it just makes it very easy for us to take their money. That's what we do. I want to talk a little bit about an article that was being discussed online. It was an article written by Ben Bernanke. Remember Ben Bernanke, former Fed chairman. He now works for the conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation. He has a blog, apparently, and he wrote an article about that the Fed, in considering future crises, should adopt a temporary measure that he calls price targeting, not inflation targeting, but price targeting. Because he said, now, you know, I got to tell you that it's again one of these things that you got these people in charge of these institutions who have no clue. Really, it's a fascinating, very, almost maddening thing that you have these people who really have no understanding of their role or the role of the institution that they run or the powers of the institution that they control. So here's a guy at the highest level of economics, right? PhD, vaunted, former Fed chairman, taught or got degrees at the most prestigious universities. Same like Yellen, same like all of them, right? They don't understand. I mean, the guy, first of all, he goes on and said, you know, how he laments about how it's so odd that after all the quote unquote stimulus and liquidity that was provided by the Fed, that inflation is still below its target. So again, right there, we see a total lack of understanding, of the connection between, first of all, what is monetary policy, and he calls it liquidity or stimulus, when quantitative easing, and I've been over this so many times, and many of you understand this very clearly now, is a gigantic asset swap where the Fed was removing high-yielding assets. In other words, assets that threw off high amounts of income or relatively high amounts of income, and replacing that in the trillions with zero income paying or very low income paying reserve balances in the banking system. So number one, doesn't understand that. Fundamentally doesn't understand that, number one. Number two, does not understand the price setting function of the Fed, right? When the rates go down, that's price cuts. That's a general price cut. The cost of credit is reflected in the cost of all goods and services. When the Fed lowers interest rates, that effectively lowers the general level of prices. Okay, so they all don't understand this. They all don't understand this. Yellen, Bernanke, the Draghi at the ECB, the Bank of Japan people, the entire institutional, gang, club of central bankers and mainstream economists do not understand this. Okay, and most people do not understand this. You got a lot of these quacks and zombies and goofballs out there, people who sometimes comment on my videos here about how, low interest rates going to cause inflation, hyperinflation. They're still quoting people like Schiff and everything like that. I mean, it's incredible. So anyway, in this price targeting, where number one, he does not even see the fault, the flaw in his argument that the Fed did, raise its balance sheet by what, fivefold, almost sixfold, and had no effect. In fact, had the opposite effect on prices. Prices fell, inflation fell. But now he's saying like this: because if we have enough, because rates are still so low, right? Not understanding that the Fed, again, not understanding that the Fed is keeping the rate low, like it's supposed to magically go up. But he's blaming it because inflation is so low. But again, inflation's low because the Fed has been cutting prices through its low interest rates, and it has kept the rate low. If you want a high rate, so he said because the rates are so low, essentially what he was saying, the Fed doesn't have enough ammunition. Now he's starting to sound like Peter Schiff himself right here, to fight the next recession. So you're going to have to get the rates up higher. How do you do that? Like, how do you do that? He's asking that question. We all sit around every month waiting for the conclusion of the Fed meeting to listen what you guys are going to set the rate at. And he's like, how do you do that? How do you do that? So he said you gotta engage in massive amounts of this. He calls it temporary price level policy. He doesn't want to say stimulus or expanding the balance sheet, so that hopefully, here's what he says: hopefully the rate will go up to 3 or 4%. Like hopefully, like again, doesn't understand. Like you set the rate, guy. Dude, you set the rate. You wanted it 4%, you could do it right now. You could call a meeting and say, okay, rates are 4%. Boom, they're 4%. Unbelievable. Folks, it is truly, truly incredible. It is amazing. Here's a guy, super educated guy, PhD, went to the top schools. What is he, like a Princeton guy? I forget where he got. Head of the Fed at the Brookings Institution, right? Lauded, asked to give speeches, how do we got to try to get that rate up to 3 to 4% to have ammunition to fight the unbelievable. Not once do they ever mention fiscal policy. How did we get at it? And by the way, this guy's a student, supposedly a student of the Great Depression. That was everybody. I remember everybody talking about that. Well, how did we get out of the Great Depression? The government spent money. We rebuilt the country. Work Progress Administration built the Hoover Dam. Then we got in a war and we ran the deficit up to 34% of GDP. I was talking about that in one of my videos. That would be the equivalent of a $7 trillion deficit today. All right. You know what that would do? We could rebuild everything with that. The economy would be growing at 15% annually. So that's it. That's Bernanke. We got to try to figure out some way to build ammunition to get the rates up to 3 to 4%. Incredible, folks. Incredible. My 15-year-old daughter could run the Fed, could run this country better than any one of these clowns. Any one of these clowns. I'm telling you. Have a great day. Think about this stuff. It's wild. It'll blow your mind. But we make money off of this. My people make money off of this. I don't know about the rest of you clowns. Bye.